Hello, my name is Synn Kune Loh. I'm very happy to be sharing with you something I'm very passionate about tonight on the mystical content of the Chinese written word through sustainability television. And I think this is a great project because a simplified version of the Chinese written language, which take away an important component, in my opinion, of the mystical content of our culture. So it will affect and impact the collective consciousness of the new generations to come. Then they will, in my view, there will be something missing in the spirit of the culture of the nation. The language on the planet can be divided into two categories: auditory language and visual language. Auditory language, of course, is English, so you have the sound and you assign meaning to the sound. However, the sound is written through alphabets, and for example, the word sun, S-U-N, if you don't know the meaning, you can never guess from S-U-N is referring to the disc above you. But in the visual language, like Chinese, it's different. We begin with a picture, and then the sound is really secondary because the sound becomes a different dialect. So I want to guide you through a process of looking at how the Chinese language evolved through the pictures. So first, there's something called the concrete images, meaning that you draw pictures of things that you can see. For example, this is the word sun, and this is the word moon. And together, combined, it becomes the word bright. So that's become an abstract word. And then that's how the languages build up its vocabulary. Now, this in the ancient times is the word tree. It represents something that grows from the ground. Nowadays, it's written like this. Of course, language, the writing of the language evolved over time, particularly with the invention of the brush. But I'm talking about the original fundamental forms. So the word sun now is written this way. Now, if I combine the word sun and the tree, what will we get? East, sun rising through the trees. So that's very poetic component. And that the word east in the auditory language will never give you the impression. So the word itself is poetry. And it offers a tremendous possibility of communicating something greater than what you see and then what you can sense. This character means standing over the sun. Now, what does it mean, standing over the sun? Meaning that actually, how can we stand over the sun? No, meaning that you are capturing something very powerful, and it becomes the word sound. So a vibration. And then if you put that over the word heart, it becomes the word yi, which has no translation in English, but it's very important in the Chinese language. It means what can be felt in the heart that cannot be expressed in words. So for example, there are two kinds of paintings. If you look over there, this is called painting from the yi, as opposed to a realistic painting. That means painting from just the rendering of the outer form. So the artist in Chinese calligraphy actually is more important to write with the music from the heart than the form of the object. Yeah. Academically, there are 6 ways of how the Chinese language evolved, the written language evolved. So we're not going to go into that tonight. But what is important is I will choose a number of characters that I find very important to the evolution of consciousness. And one word in particular important is the word I. The word I can be broken down into first two components, this stroke, and then this character below. The character below, as a word, means searching, looking for. Looking for what? What is this? This is the initiation of a circle, perhaps, a journey of life. We will come into life with family, with certain natural gifts. Some Buddhist text will say from karma, from past lives. And our path is to complete that journey. So when we complete to the end of our days, it will be a great blessing to know, I see what happened. Well, I see why I lived this lifetime, this journey. So to do that, you need to search. And to search, it can be broken out into two characters. On this side, it means using the hand to pick up something. What are you picking up? A tool. So you don't get it by yourself, you need to find tools. So you need to learn, you need to go journey in life. So this character has a lot of meanings to it. In the last presentation, very interesting afterwards, we had some people were talking, we're all saying about we've been to Thailand, going to Cambodia, to India. What are you searching for? What are we doing in sustainability television? What are we searching for? So this is the most fundamental universal aspect, because we can never be satisfied through our senses. We always search for the deeper meaning, the greater reality. So in this one word, it tells you about life in its essence, is to search. And what you find is the process and the reward for being alive. So I want to introduce to you 3 other words. These 2 characters means the word religion. And in Chinese, the first word religion means pointing to the origin. So if I write it in molecular form, it will look like this. And interesting enough, I'm developing a molecular form of language which I use in my paintings, hoping that it will evoke people's collective conscious memory of evolution. So it means searching for the origin, and the other character has 2 parts. One part means, actually it means filial piety, meaning like a son to the parents. You have to be like a child. If you, in the religious context, you have to, the devotion has to be like a son to a father. But to what? To a document, to a text that I find it very interesting. Of course, in Christianity it would be the Bible, and then Muslim would be the Quran. There is all these texts that holds the secret of life, and then religion meaning that you have to be devotional to the text that will guide you to the beginning. So there's a Chinese character for that. The next character is called politics. Interesting. Politics, the character text is there again, and then is paired with the root character being righteous. You have to have the righteous text. So the Declaration of Independence and all that, they are very grand ideology, but they have to be right. Yeah, they have to be done for the good of the people, and this word means cultivation. The three dots on the side actually is written this way, means water. Anytime in the Chinese language when you see the component water, it usually means nurturing. So, and this side, the other side, the character means a platform. So politics becomes the right text that will guide you to become the platform for nurturing. Doesn't that means a lot more than politic? You can never. And finally, the third character means asking for help or assistance. And there's two sides again. One side is asking, the other side is, once again, the word text. So that got me interested. What text are we asking for? So, and interesting, when you ask for help, you're not asking from other person, you're asking for a text. So what are these texts? So I began to explore. Actually, the word planet Earth become very interesting. This is the character Earth. Now you all know in Chinese we have probably called they're not called 4 elements, but the 5 processes of metal, water, wood, earth, fire. Each one of these becomes the root character. You can see the word wood becomes the root character for the word east. So this is the character Earth. Anytime you see Earth, and that's what it's related to, anything earthbound. This word means also. So what does it mean by also Earth? This character means, this is the character 3, it means heaven, man and earth united. So the word means king. The ruler is one who unites heaven and earth through man. So the word earth means looking for the ruler, looking for the person who can govern heaven and earth. And that's why the ancient emperors all claim they are ordained by heaven. So the planet Earth, then if you read into the 2 characters, means looking for the ruler to govern. This is also Earth. Now it's hard to explain in English. What do you mean by also Earth? I mean, it implies there's another Earth that existed. But here we're trying to find that. Perhaps there's a civilization that gave us the knowledge to evolve, needed another Earth to do what they have done wrong. I mean, if you read enough science fiction novels, that's a possibility. Anyway, so allow me to indulge in my fantasy that the word Earth itself will bring that up in my mind, that we are here as a secondary planet to another civilization. So if that civilization does exist, what is the evidence? The evidence are in what we call the sacred text that they left behind. In India, there's the Mahabharata, going back to thousands of years ago, and in other ancient culture in Egypt. And in China, there are 4 sacred texts, 4 plus 1. The last one is special because it came later. So I will explain that. And the 4 ancient texts, this is very interesting. This series no longer exists. When I was a child, they're everywhere, but nobody reads them because they think it's just fantasy. But the Mountain and Ocean Journal, it documents, and there's some fantastic illustration inside of strange creatures. Now, if you think back into history, they claim, the Chinese claim, everything came from the time of Confucius, called the period of spring and autumn, which is 500 BC. At 500 BC, who can write a geographical novel from Japan to Java to through the desert to the west? How much time you need to travel north, south, east, west, and come back and wrote it? For someone to do that, they have to be patroned. There had to be a patron. There had to be an emperor, someone behind to support it. But no such thing exists. So the book just surfaced, and then if you read it, it's incredibly detailed, There's genealogy. There's it just blew my mind basically. I think how could this be overlooked? The other text is the Yellow Emperor's Classics of Medicine, which is the backbone of traditional Chinese medicine. It allows us to look at the human body in a totally different perspective from the Western medicine. So my question is, the basic bone script that scholars refer to as the beginning of the Chinese written language, they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have enough words to describe what is in this book. Not to mention the knowledge. People say, oh, the early farmers experiment, they pinched themselves and they found the meridian point, which is really nonsense. You know, if they have a pain up here, how do you find a point down here? You know, you can pinch yourself black and blue, it's not going to happen. There is a way, because that diagram was given to them. It was given to someone. The third one, the Tao Te Ching. Tao Te Ching, of course, is Lao Tzu's writing, and everybody knows about that and his story. You don't know. Lao Tzu is a mystic who was supposed to be born wise. He claimed that he lived through a number of experiences and said, I have enough, I'm leaving. So on his way west, the last city that he was to depart, the governor of the city recognized him and kept him for a number of days, keep asking him questions. And Lao Tzu would answer them. So this governor would write them down, and that became the Tao Te Ching. And then modern scholars would say the Tao Te Ching is metaphysics, is quantum physics, all of those things. And so there are many references made to that. So that's what I call another sacred text. Then finally the I Ching, the oracle, the Chinese oracle, which no one knew who wrote it again, but it detailed the creation of life from 8 properties: heaven, earth, fire, water, mountain, lake, wind, thunder. So the entire substance of the planet can fall into these 8 categories. The interaction will create the 10,000 forms. So interesting, in the West, there are 2 books that I found. One is called DNA and the I Ching, and by a doctor called Katia Walter, and she's a doctor, a medical doctor, and she used the oracle as part of her diagnostic procedure, and she found incredible success. She's in Texas. And then another scholar, DNA and the I Ching, that the I Ching, the 64 properties correspond to the DNA in our body. And he ran a program to discuss it. So if we backtrack 500 BC, how would they come up with this just by themselves? So that's why I call them sacred text, sacred in the sense that it is not discovered or brought through the mind of an ordinary person, but there's a parallel civilization going on. And this is an interesting character. This is the word spirit guide, fairy, whatever. No, those are not the correct word. But the 2 characters means a human person working and in the mountain. So it's no different than the Rip and Winkle story, that they fell asleep for 7 days and then the world changed. So in China, there are many aspects of a person went into the mountain and came back, and suddenly he became the great healer. Suddenly he became a great warrior. They always said he found the text in the mountain, in a cave, something like that. So then the word text, the sacred text, perhaps is more than fictional imagination, that it actually exists. Okay, so let's look at the word text. This is written this way. Now, in the molecular form that I'm inventing, then I will paint it this way. So what that means is this. A human being praying to heaven, which is very common. The ancient people, they all do. Everybody does. Oh God, please help me. What are you doing? All prayers are answered. So there's an invisible vortex that will come down from heaven. It actually moves through your body, and the process is this. First contact, second, can you see the movement of heaven descending and earth ascending in your body, and then finally, in modern explanation, I would try to say the chakras are moving, the upper three coming down, doesn't matter. Meaning that you are touched by heaven and earth, and then something reverses in your in the body, and you are being reborn. So that's what the word text means. Now, the word text involves words, but the words convey that process of transformation. So it is very important that you have an understanding of some text that you choose, and be devotional too. That becomes your religion, and then finally, what is the outcome? It is transformation and a rebirth, and that's is the journey I believe we are all on. So finally, it goes back to what are we searching for? I encounter people doing wonderful things, very beautiful people going all over the world, going to sacred sites. They are searching for what I call the direct experience. Life's experience can be divided into two things: indirect and direct. Indirect experience is you can study. Now they are important, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel again and again. But they will only give you a part of the picture. Actually, they lead you on until when you have that direct contact, some call it enlightenment, everything falls away. It's timeless property. And what happens is, when you look back, you have changed. You're not the same person. And that's what happened to me. And I can't even remember what year it happened, somewhere in the 1980s. And there were 3 simple events. But when I put them together, and I look at myself half a year later, I said, oh my God, my whole life changed. How did that happen? Because I had some direct experience. And that's what I want to communicate to you. The sacred text offers part of the picture towards a direct experience, because without this knowledge, you're in ignorance. You just don't know what happened. You don't know why you're suffering. You don't know why you're not happy. And then through the experience, I came upon something called the Heart Sutra, which leads me to understand the concept of the inner senses and the outer senses. How human beings are so conditioned to feeding our physical senses, but you can never be satisfied. You can eat the best food, you'll be hungry again. You can have the best sensory experience, and then it's over. But what are you looking for? Why do people do drugs? Why do people go on never-ending sunset cruises? They have all that they can eat, and then they still feel, I'm empty. Because they are searching for that direct experience, that they can be completely in touch with the greater mystery of life. And that's why we're here speaking tonight. So before I go there, I want to give you the final two words in Chinese character for direct and indirect experience. Direct, this word means straight line to receiving. Indirect experience, and this word means is part of the word time. The sun going through the door. This is the sun, this is the door. The sun going through the door, and it takes time to receive. So I later on, when I described the Heart Sutra, that became my illumination, is to what degree are you open to receive? People go to Thailand and they say, I have a wonderful time. But actually, are you open to receive what exactly Thailand offers you? Or are you going as a Westerner and just take what suits you? Not until you live. My wife and I traveled a long time in Mexico. We live in different families. And it's receiving their caring and loving, that's our real experience, because that is direct. We learn most from the maids, because they are the one who's feeding us on a daily basis. I find that actually is very fundamental. So what is the connection? The connection is through the heart. So in the Chinese character language, the word heart is so important. I'm not going into that tonight. That's for another talk. But I will skip to the Heart Sutra. So the difference between indirect experience and direct experience is in activation. Something activated in your body, and sometimes the environment changes to allow that to happen, and all circumstances will come into your life as coincidences. And why? Because you are a seeker. We are all seekers. And to what degree are you committed to your journey, I think, is to what degree the direct experience will happen. And the indirect experiences are just preparations. You can go to 1,000 sites and just be a tourist. What is a tourist? A tourist is, you always talk about yourself. So you can be traveling to India and you still talk about what happens back home. But the direct experience is that you literally be there. And that is the first requirement. And now I'm not saying it's not good to be a tourist. Sometimes it's necessary to have a boundary. But what is the deepest part of your being that you want in relationships, in your career, that you want to be directly expressed and not just because otherwise become derivative. And that's what frustrates me a number of years ago, that as an artist, I think I'm just painting a tradition that started up before me, but what is my work? As someone trying to find a place in the world, nothing satisfied me. I needed to work as a waiter in a hotel part-time just to pay the bills, but that's killing me. Then finally, heaven and earth moved for me to have the experience. And how it happened was very interesting. 4 artists came from China because Chongqing and Toronto became sister cities. I was asked to receive them because I spoke Chinese. And in turn, they invited me to go to China to teach. Later on, I realized where I went to teach was the 3rd largest, most prestigious art school in China. It's not easy to teach there. People from all over the world apply. If I apply, I will be bottom of the list. But I encountered someone. So that's one of the criteria I later on I learned. I'll put it down into 3 words. Time of heaven. Heaven has to move in its time for you to have the experience. Otherwise, you can effort it, it won't happen. Favorable ground. You have to be in the right place. I was at the right place in Toronto. They happened to be there, and then we met up. And then, so I call that fertile ground, and harmony of human intentions. You have to go along. Basically, you have to surrender. Now, when I went to teach in China in those days, life was very difficult. It was very cold in wintertime. If you don't surrender, you get sick. But I told people later on that I was caught in a kind of patriotic fever. That's what sustained me. But there's another fever, which is spiritual fever, wanting to find the truth. And that's what drove me and took me there. So then the second event occurred was I had an injury from playing tennis. My knee was injured. I had acupuncture treatment. And after one treatment, the person who gave me the treatment is nothing special, just a simple acupuncturist. But it opened up some meridians in me, I thought later. And I had an experience lying on the table. I felt some invisible being contacted me. And I said, who is here? Because I had no fear in my heart. And the word Kuan Yin. Now, I'm a Chinese, so everybody knows Kuan Yin. I said, joking. No way. I thought it was memory of my grandmother making fun of me. So I just left it. Then shortly after, on my way to China, I was in Hong Kong, in a bookstore, looking for some novels. I bumped into a sales girl and knocked a pile of books from her hand. I helped her pick it up. She said, let me give you one copy. This is a gift. And it's a Heart Sutra. So that's how the Heart Sutra came into my life. I did not seek it, but I did ask for it in a different roundabout way. So I look at it and say, Buddhist teaching, not me. Throw in my gym bag. And I was practicing my Tai Chi in the botanical garden one morning. The book fell out. An old man walked by and said, oh, young man, so unusual for someone like you to be studying the Buddhist text. I said, yeah, I got it by chance, but I had no idea what it's about. He said, come for 3 days, I will teach you. So I went for 3 days. He taught me about this and that, and I was young, I had no patience. I said, form and emptiness had no meaning for me. So he gave up, but he said, but you have been touched by something special, and you have been called, it's up to you now. Then, just before we parted, he said, by the way, what do you do? I said, I'm an artist. He said, oh, you're going to paint the sutra. I said, joking, no way, I'm becoming a well-known contemporary landscape Chinese painter. He just go, ha ha ha, and then he walked away. Now I went to teach in China, and after I finished teaching, the school was happy with me. They said, we have no money to give you, but we can offer you a vacation anywhere in the province of Sichuan. So on the advice of a young teacher, he said, you should go to the Buddhist grotto. So I went. It's a 1 day's journey from school, and it changed my life. I walked into the grotto and I saw all these Buddhist sculptures. And suddenly I understood something. What it meant by all sentient beings have the potential to become Buddha. Because all the anonymous monks, they saw a rock, a stone on a cliff, and they saw the potential for it to be a Buddha form, and they carved it. They spent their life anonymously carving it, and I want to be famous. And what am I doing? I'm just, doing something for me. But these monks, they did it for all humanity. I don't know why. I'm not a particularly big-hearted person, but I felt so small in there. And I felt like, God, I need something more. And I walked into one of the caves, and it's called the Thousand Arms Kuan Yin, and I lost track of time. I thought it was only a few minutes. When I came out, my guy said, oh God, you've been gone for half an hour. What did you do in there? I said, I have no idea. Then he looked at me and said, something in you changed. I said, no, joking. But I knew he was right, because I just didn't feel the same thing about life, about the world. And that's what happened when you had a direct experience. And just to confirm that, on my farewell dinner, one of the wives of a teacher came from Yunnan, and she read my palm and said, your lines have changed. I said, no, I've got to be joking, you make a mistake. She wasn't. Because when I went back to Toronto, where I lived at the time, went into my studio, look at my work, they had no meaning. So, but the Buddha form stayed in my mind. So I remember this day in particular. I didn't have a car at the time. I got up at Broadview, I walked 10 minutes to my studio. It was the happiest moment in my life. I felt I have a purpose. I felt I will be looked after, I will have no fear about my future. Hard to explain, but that sense of peace, I have never felt that ever again in my life. But in that 10 minutes walk, the world was particularly bright, it's all illuminated. Later on, I understood the Heart Sutra talked about the illumination of the senses. So I walk into the studio, I look at my blank canvas, and I had this desire to paint the Buddha form. I didn't know how. Because I've looked at traditional Chinese paintings of Buddha, I said those are caricatures, portraits. Then something came to me. All I had to do is to draw 10 circles. Anybody can draw 10 circles perfectly. And then here's the Buddha form. Because that's what I was looking for. I said, if I were to make a Buddha form art painting, I have to be able to reproduce it. Anybody has to be able to reproduce it. Because all sentient beings can become a Buddha. Then it also occurred to me about sacred text. This is what happened in the word text. This is the lower part of the form, and what the text will give you is the inspiration. So I was so excited, and I work on the canvas, and I make the Buddha form, and there was a painting, and here's the Buddha form. But there's all this space empty. What am I going to do with that? I was thinking of painting some clouds. I said no. Then I saw the book, the text, the Heart Sutra. So I started writing, not knowing how. I didn't measure out, I didn't count. Lo and behold, the first character to the last character was perfectly fitted onto there. Meant to be. And now I had studied some calligraphy, but I knew that was very good calligraphy because there were no false strokes. And years later, I always thought I can reproduce that. I could not. So now I want to show you that painting. So I finished that painting, and I did a few others similar to that, and I showed it to my dealer at the time, and he thought I went crazy. So we spent years promoting you as a landscape artist, and now you turn religious on me. I said, it's not religion, it's an experience. And I had one final show with that gallery, and that was the end of my commercial career. But I wasn't the same person. The point I want you to know is I was young, ambitious, moving up through the gallery system, and now because of this direct experience, my whole life changed. I lost everything. And then I began to study something about Buddhism. I'm not a religious person, therefore I'm not comfortable with the rituals and everything. I'm fascinated by the life stories of Sakyamuni Buddha, and I find out that a monk from Tang Dynasty who went from China to India to bring back the scriptures and translate it, and the Heart Sutra was his translation. The one that I wrote on the painting was his translation. So I became very, very fascinated by his life, and I felt a strong affinity that he stood for all humanity. And suddenly I seem to have understood the many things. So, and he lived in 602 to 664 AD. So this is the story that I got from trying to understand him. That he came back from India with all these teachings, and he got into this state of despair. He talked to Buddha and said, what's the use of all these translations when most people can't even read? And Buddha said, well, then it's your job to make them understand. Why don't you take 3 of the big sutras, the Diamond Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, and the Great Enlightenment Sutra, and combine them into a simple teaching that will open the heart of a young disciple. And the monk said, like who? Buddha said, like the little monk who is sweeping in the garden right now. If he can understand and be awakened, then the work is correct. So that's what the monk did. And the Heart Sutra has 250 something odd characters. It's the shortest of all the Buddhist teachings because it goes directly to the heart. So I was happy with that. And then the other miracle was, in the process, I didn't tell the audience, I memorized the sutra. Before I went into China, at the garden, 3 days, I must have read it three times with the old man. I got it memorized. Now, I have never memorized any text in my life. I can't even say the Lord's Prayer completely. But this text I memorized. And it's been 20, 30 years since then. Strange enough, I don't use it that much. You know, I will always imagine, God, my life with heaven and earth will move because I have this contact to this secret teaching. But no, life doesn't happen that way. So to finally now I'm sharing the story with you. But of course it has worked in many other ways that allow me to become who I am today. And it's because of understanding. A Van Morrison song really speaks very close to me. When your heart begins to think, your head will begins to feel, and you see the world in a real way, something like that. So I try to live that way in my creativity, in my art at least. Then come the next part, about the text itself. There are English translations of the Heart Sutra. And then once again, similar to the Chinese sacred text, they are totally inadequate. So one day I look at it and said, God, the Chinese text itself is so revealing. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. Because the English, I read the Heart Sutra has 3 parts. The introduction, the first paragraph, the discourse in the middle, and then the mantra at the end. So this is one translation of the first paragraph. Avalokita, the Holy Lord and Bodhisattva, was moving in the deep course of the wisdom which has gone beyond. He looked down from on high, he beheld but 5 heaps, and he saw that in their own being they were empty. I doubt if anyone can get enlightened from reading this 1,000 times. Now I should not be judgmental. The sutra is a sutra, the translation in a different language is still the sutra. So in my biased opinion, of course, the Chinese translation is way superior. But I'm sure an English person reading the sutra, say 10,000 times, would achieve a certain devotion. And that devotion will bring about the direct experience. I think that's the logic behind it. Recently, I come to understand about great leaders. They're more than people. People can like them, they can respect them, they can understand what they say, they can say, oh, they're brilliant. But if they're not loved, then they won't be great. And that love is the devotion. And I think where the heart is concerned for the human being, if you haven't found that devotion to a higher cause, you will always be empty. So that's why I want to support sustainability television, because I believe that Jason came to me tonight, of course initiated by the Heart Sutra as well, but it answers to a certain devotional aspect. And perhaps you'll be one step on the way for a direct experience for you know, or the audience that can. Okay, so I won't spend any more time on the historical context, but I will go directly to the teaching itself. The first word of the Heart Sutra, observe the presence of self, that is a bodhisattva. That is a direct English translation. Now, this part of the word came from the word power. So observe means, and this character means to see. So observe means the power to see within. Because the presence of self is inward. So observe is that you have to find the power to see. So why is that profound? Because you have to understand what observation means. In quantum mechanics, quantum physics, they said there's something called the observer's effect. Reality is based on observation. Whatever you observe, it becomes real. Because a leaf falling from a tree, 10 people observing will generate 10 different responses. So you need to know that you have the power to see. People in suffering they don't ever see that they have the power to initiate their perception. So what I come to understand is that the power to see has two parts: perception and reception. And the perception is more than the outer five senses. You have to perceive from the inner five senses. Because the outer five senses demand to be fed all the time, but the inner five senses want the silence. So ultimately, the sutra would say, if you would go to the empty space among the five senses, that's where you will bring forth the light that will illuminate from within, transcending every hardship in life. Now the empty space among the five senses is the same as what quantum physics talked about. The atoms are empty on the inside. So what is filled, what is reality? Consciousness. So refine your consciousness so that you have the power to perceive, and then you have the willingness to open to receive. I didn't have to receive the book from the bookstore. I can say, oh, thank you, no, I'm not religious. Thank you, give it back to the lady. The old man who said to me, I'll come for 3 days, I said, come on, got to be kidding me. I have no time for you, right? Every step of the way. And then in China, they said, go to the Buddhist quarter. I said, oh, I don't want to go there, I want to go to another city. But I'm willing, I'm open. So, even when Jason asked me, he said, to film a session, at first I said no. Then I thought about it, I said, no, I'm going against the principles that guided me on my journey so far. So here we are tonight. And perhaps this is how it will come across. Who will see this, then it may be something to help you to move the next step closer to the direct experience. So perception and reception can be practiced. There are many ways: meditation, be kind to yourself and other people, all of those things. It's a daily practice. But the outcome is that you have the power, you have gained the power to see. And I have learned so much recently from my relationship with my mother-in-law. I have to look after her, and I resisted it. But now I see it in a whole different way. And so the word self, you notice there is this stroke again. And that is a very powerful symbol in the Chinese word. It is the initiation. It initiates something happening. What does initiate? This character means the I. Self is, you initiate the I to see. So it's directly linking to the power to see. So, just to sidetrack for a moment, because I'm very fascinated by this written word thing. I show you this character means ruler, a king. If I put a dot on top, that means principle, the mainstream, whatever. But if I put the stroke to the side, it means birth. And that's a very powerful word. So birth is the initiation of something touched by heaven that will connect heaven and earth through a human being. Now, if I put the word sun on top, it becomes the word star. And it means born from the sun. When I first came to understand this explanation, I was totally astounded. I think that's cosmology. How would the ancient Chinese know that the star is born from the sun? So the word presence involves the word earth. So meaning that it's a very grounded experience. It's not a concept that you see what is physically within you, who you are. Then the next interesting thing is the three characters together becomes also the name of Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is also known as Gun Ji Joy. Someone who is fully at peace with himself, within yourself, because then you have the power to see, to observe, to perceive, and that's Kuan Yin. So Kuan Yin is not a deity from the outside. Kuan Yin is a presence that anybody can become. So when you help someone in a car accident, you pull somebody out from the fire, in that moment you became Kuan Yin. These two words means Bodhisattva. They're not Chinese, they are translation from Sanskrit, a direct phonetic translation. Therefore, I don't want to give any meaning to these two words because it's a phonetic translation. But the word Bodhisattva is important to understand the difference between Bodhisattva and Buddha. Buddha is this cosmic being, had very little relationship to the everyday things of the world. But the Bodhisattva is different. The Bodhisattva, the best way to explain that is you will see life, there is an ocean or a big river, and on one side is nirvana. Not so much heaven, but meaning the absence of suffering. And this side is called samsara, the dimension of suffering. Our journey is we want to go from here to there, but we cannot cross over until someone take us over. And all the bodhisattvas in the legend is they stand by the shore and they make the vows that we will not cross over until all sentient beings have crossed. And they also make the vow, say, if you will but call, I will be there. That all that requires for you to call. What do you call? You call their name. So the chanting at the end, there's three chants involved. There's a name chant, there is a heart chant, and there is a process of being together traveling. So you chant any one of these is to evoke my presence, and I will be there. And the first time I understood this concept, I just cried. Who can ever tell me that they will be there for me in every way, in every situation? And I'm sure I have prayed in my own way for many, many crises, and I'm here. All been so observe the presence of self, who is the Bodhisattva within you. So that's the first sentence of the Heart Sutra. The second sentence, journey deep to the wisdom that takes you to the other shore. And that's the full title. All that I explained to you before about samsara to nirvana is the wisdom that takes you to the other shore. That's called prajna paramita. In the English version, that's what you see. Prajna paramita. So the word journey involves two persons walking side by side. So this process of going within yourself is not singular, it's not alone. And that's why it's the vow of the Bodhisattva, Kuan Yin said that one of the greatest vow. If you will but call, I will be there, I will walk with you. So by yourself, you cannot move through the desire of the senses. But with the help, you can. So journey deep. The word deep, there's the side of the water, always about diving, water deep. And this character on the other side implies adventure. That the journey within is an adventure of diving deep within, like into the ocean. The journey of meditation and the journey of this inward thing is, are you ready to go deep within yourself? So are you ready to go deep to find the wisdom that will take you to the other shore? So that's the key. Now, so then we have to explain what is wisdom. So, where suffering comes from ignorance, that's a fundamental of the Buddhist teaching. And the sign of ignorance is, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I'm being, why my husband left me, why my boss fired me, and so on and so forth. So ignorance is not knowing. So at some point, the person wants information. That's the first step. The information itself is not enough. You have to practice it. So that's why the sutra is available, but it's not enough. You have to practice the teaching. So then it becomes knowledge. So knowledge is information practice that can generate positive results consistently. Then it becomes easier and easier until finally you achieve wisdom. Wisdom is then beyond words. Now it will take me an hour or 2 hours to give you this discourse. But if I'm in a place of wisdom with you, I can just look into the camera and smile. There will be an illumination and your heart will be open, and that will be it. Ultimately, that's what we practice. So I use this expression to designate the different state. So that's what we want to achieve. And I also use the example of in the marketplace, you go to of some kind of expo. The information teacher, they have binders, thick binders, all said, come and sign up, and then you get this binder, you follow it, then you improve your life. The knowledge teacher, says, just come to my seminar, listen to me talk. The wisdom teacher, they walk through the marketplace, suddenly babies stop crying, merchants stop arguing, and a person will say, what happened? Perhaps there's a fragrance linger, and the master walks through, and everybody's been touched, and life is not the same. That is wisdom. And the Heart Sutra said, there is a possible you can be in that state if you get the illumination from within. And that's all. It's so simple. So my understanding of why do we want to achieve this journey? Because we needed to be reborn away from Sakyamuni Buddha. When he awakened, he saw the problem of humanity, where the suffering comes from. He tried to put in the methodology. Now I'm not saying it worked. He said, if you follow me, you have to leave your family. Basically, you have to become a monk. You have to shave your head, to take away all vanity. You have to beg for food, you have to give away all your possessions. Because all these are what we call lingering obstructions that tie you to the suffering. But that's a mechanical concept. Of course it doesn't work, otherwise the world would be a better place by now. But it is one possibility. In his time in India, where people are suffering, he said, I needed disciples because I have experienced the illumination. How can I help them? These are ignorant people. So let's make these rules. But let's look beyond that. What does he want them to achieve? Is the idea of being reborn away from the family. So the Buddhist concept of karma and family, that's how it came from. Now, I'm not proposing anyone to dissociate from your family, but I would say just examine the dynamics of what the family have caused and how much energy that you exerted to maintain who you are in front of them, and it's just, but to search for yourself, to be in that directly contact with life. And then by being that, when you are illuminated, when you're in a place of wisdom, there will be no conflict. There cannot be any conflict. And then you will find perhaps there is the love, there's the devotion that can nurture you and everybody else. So that's my understanding of this part of the sutra. The final word is time. Observe the presence of self as a bodhisattva, journey deep to the wisdom that takes you to the other shore. The word time means the sun moving through the temple. It is a slow process. When you go and live in the temple, the day is long, the day is slow. So it's saying that although the illumination can be instantaneous, but the journey could be long. Be a monk, do the practice. Let the sun move through the temple. And that's time. I'm going to move a little faster. The next sentence is, when you journey deep to the wisdom that takes you to the other shore, it will illuminate when you come to the empty space among the five senses, there will be illumination. This word illumination is very interesting. It means calling forth to come. So that there is a power when you come to the empty space. It's not that you see that you can illuminate it. There's a higher power to call forth the illumination within you. So you can't help it, but be open and be respectful and say, okay, I accept. Of course you can refuse, and then it won't happen. But the few occasions when I saw that white light among people, objects and people, my heart just stopped. I said, oh my God, I'm seeing the light. So that the empty space among the five senses. How do you achieve it? Go to the empty space among the five senses. You just simply have to surrender, because the five senses involve touch, sight, hearing, smelling, all of that. So in meditation, there comes a time you become one with the chair you're sitting on, you become one with the sound, and it is not to eliminate, but simply be fully present into something greater. So the final sentence, it means transcending every hardship in life. There is no greater, smaller, bigger, transcending every hardship in life. So I thought, how can a person ask for more? That there is a pathway for your heart to open to an empty space, then you can illuminate, the illumination will come from within, and your five senses will surrender, and the outer circumstances will change, illuminating the five senses, transcending every hardship in life. And I say that over and over again to myself. That is a direct experience. So I wish for you all that will happen for you at some point. And hoping tonight is the first step. And have a safe journey. So I'd like to bring my wife up to share a few words with you. On this journey, we have been together every step of the way. And I'm truly honored and grateful and amazed at her courage and her power of silence. Oftentimes, I'm the guy who speaks the 10,000 words. But I remember when we were in Mexico, in Saltillo, on stage, she sat with me. She didn't say a word. And afterwards, I had a crowd of people just challenge me about what I said. You know, they wanted to ask questions. And I looked over, there was a lineup of women. honoring her for being there with me on stage, sharing the stage. And I think that was one of the most blessed moments. And then we gave a workshop to the governor of Tamaulipas, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't realize he brought the whole cabinet with him. And they are, ministers who graduated from Harvard, from Stanford. And one man came and said to me afterwards, "You did good, but your wife, the way she looked at you throughout the weekend, is more powerful than anything else." So you were recognized always.
Power of love.
Yeah. Okay, come up, say a few words.
My name is Dawn Conley, and I've been partners with Synn Kune. We traveled all around Mexico, everywhere we do together. So it's been lovely. I've been speaking with him, or he speaks, and we've been together always. So it's been lovely. I have theater background, so we have tapes and different things we do together, the poetry and the Heart Sutra. Synn Kune paints, so it's all about the journey in life, and we all get to daily go through it. So it's time to, with every breath, then we get to nightly, every day. About the journey.